All right, let's talk about math. This week you're going to be working on measurement, which is why everybody needed to have a ruler. If you don't have one at home, let me know because there were some in the tub and you're definitely going to need one for your work this week. So let's talk about the types of measurement that we use. There's different lengths of measurement and it depends on what you're measuring. So if you look at your ruler, there are two sides to it. There is one with the bigger numbers across the top, 1 through 12. And then you flip it over, there is a smaller side, 1 to 30. The bigger side is inches. Your smaller side is centimeters. Inches is one of the most common ways that you're going to hear people measure if you're measuring something smaller. But it just depends on what you're using it for. So it's important to learn all of them. So let's look at centimeters because this is our smallest. When you are measuring, one of the things that is most important for kiddos to remember is that you need to line everything up so that you are lining up right over here on the edge. You have to be very precise and perfect about your measurement. So let's grab a tool. If I was going to measure this knife, I would need to make sure that I lined it up completely perfect on this end. And so then if I look at my other tip over here, I can see that it lines up to 23 centimeters. If I didn't line up this side perfect and I maybe had it hanging over a little bit or coming in a little bit, then look how it's going to change my measurement on the other side. So now, if it was a knife, I don't know how important that was, but like Brian switched dressers, and I need to put some dresser inserts to divide his clothes so I can have his like shirts and his shorts and everything divided up. And I needed to measure that drawer specifically so that I could order the dividers online. So if I didn't measure it right, then I'm going to order those. They're going to come in and they're not going to fit. So there's a lot of times like that. You're ordering furniture for your house. You know, I don't know. There's a lot of things that you might measure that you're going to find that you're going to need to measure exactly or it's not going to work. Okay, so let's talk. This is centimeters, and let's talk about how you would write that. Here's your word centimeter that you are going to see on your pages. But centimeter also has an abbreviation, and we say CN, centimeters. Okay, so our other side is inches. So I flip that over to the big side. And, oh, here, these are, Hadley was having a tea party this weekend. So here's a spoon, and if I line it up perfect, let me hold it in between. On one side, it's about 3 inches. Now, when we start getting into fractions, we can look at these and we can do like 3 1/2, 3 3/4, 3 1/4. And if your parents want to show you how to get more specific about that, they can. But for right now, let's just 3 inches. So let's look at the word inches. This is the word when you're reading it. And here is your abbreviation. Inches. So then this whole entire ruler is 1 foot. If we were in class, maybe I can record a story of it, but there's a king and he wanted things measured and he was trying to build his castle and they couldn't figure out how long to make the walls and to build his castle. So they used the king's foot and use that as a standard measurement. And it wasn't just anybody's foot because not everybody's feet are the same size, but they used the king's foot, and that's where we came up with a foot. So here's your 1 foot. Okay, foot, there's your abbreviation. Sometimes you will also see little marks put next to word. They're up high like an apostrophe is. So inches is 2 and a foot is 1. I remember it by the number of syllables. Foot, foot. one syllable, so one mark. Inches, inches, two syllables, so two marks. So that's another way that you might see it there. Okay, so we've got centimeters as our smallest, inches, foot, or feet. And then after that, they're going to talk about a yard or a meter. If I put three of these together, let's see. One, and then I put a finger to mark it. 2, 3. Oh, it's longer than 3. It's going to go further. But if this was exactly 3 of these, then we would say that's a yard. Sometimes you'll see a long stick, and I have one at school, but not at home, a yard stick, which is something they give out a lot of times at the fair. If you're walking around the fair and you see people with the long sticks that they got from a booth, those are yard sticks. A yard is equal and is the same as 3 feet. You might also hear people talk about meters. And a meter is just slightly longer than a yard. It's like 3 feet plus barely a little bit more. A yard and a meter are very, very close, but they are two different words. And it depends on what you're measuring for. In math, we use yard. But if you are in a job in the sciences, they're going to use meters. So it kind of depends on what career you have in the future if you're going to use yards or meters. Now, the reason I don't have a yardstick or meter stick around my house is because if I need to measure something longer, I pull out a tape measure. So you might have one of these in your house. And on this, you also have your inches. And then look right here at the 12. There's an arrow, 1 foot. So if you're measuring something bigger, this is what you're going to see. A lot of times, like construction workers, they're going to have this. Or if your parents are doing a house project, they're going to use this instead of a yardstick over and over again. Remember when we looked at house plans, when we looked at Levi's house plans, they had to be very specific. So we looked on there about how they added your inches and your feet, because if somebody's going to build something, they need it just perfect. If it's not exactly perfect, then you're going to have a wonky house with wonky walls and wonky cabinets, and nothing's going to look right. So you do have to be very perfect when you measure. And so these are some of the standard measurements that you're going to use. Then there's one other step that you're going to add, and I like to think of a seamstress. A seamstress is somebody who sews and maybe makes your clothes. So especially back in the old days, they didn't have Amazon that you could order your clothes from or Target to go to. And somebody had to sew all the clothes for a person. So you would go in and you'd have your body measured. And then we would use this to measure around. So if you were going to measure like around your waist, it's round. It's not straight and flat. So it has to be curved. And they would measure your neck and your waist. They'd measure your arm length. Like if a man's going to have a dress shirt made, they want to know exactly how long his arm is so that it fits perfect. And then you would use one of these. So since you might not have one at your house, you might also just cut a piece of ribbon. Maybe you have some string that you use to wrap packages. Maybe you have some yarn or gardening string. Something like this. And if you don't, let me know. We'll get it for you. Because you're also going to need to measure some lengths that aren't straight and exact. So like, let's say we're going to measure this vitamin bottle. If I needed to know how far it was around, I need something that can curve around it. And so I'd measure to where does it match up on both sides. Right there. I'd keep my finger. And then I could lay it down perfectly on my ruler and see, and it's about 8 inches. Okay. Another thing you might do is you might have to measure something with a corner. So let's see, can we find the corner here? So maybe I need to measure like the width of it and then measure the length of it. And so I'm measuring different sides. And so if it's not exact, then I need to be able to measure around. Okay, so that's why we have a couple different tools, and you're going to use this. Now, this week on your pages, it'll look like you have quite a few pages, and you do. But I think you guys are going to be just fine doing this assignment. So you'll probably need to do about 2 pages a day if you want to get it all done by the end of the week, and then turn your test in to me. Your test is the red pages at the end. So just take some pictures of it and send that in to me. Let's see, what else did you need? Oh, you need to label things. So when you're doing your work, if it says how many inches long is the straw, you can't just say 5. Because I'm going to go 5 what? 5 feet? 5 yards? I mean, how long is it? So I need to know 5 inches. So you can use your little marks there, or you can put your I in inches and tell me that. But you can't just leave it blank, or I'm not going to know what you're talking about. Okay? All right. Okay, let me know if you have any questions.